Hi everybody. If you want to be a legendary entrepreneur, then this episode is for you. Because the story that I'm about to tell you today is the story of a man who went from being an ordinary salesman to becoming the retail billionaire of America. This is a story of a man who started his business with a small loan from his father-in-law and built so much wealth out of it that today, his family is worth $215 billion. This iconic businessman that I'm talking about was none other than Mr. Samuel Moore Walton, and the company that he started is what we know today as the retail giant Walmart. Today, Walmart is so huge that Americans spend $46 million at Walmart every single hour for 24 hours a day and for 365 days a year. They employ about 2.2 million people, and in 2021 alone Walmart generated a profit of $1.5 million every single hour. The question is, what was so special about Sam Walton that he was able to build such a humongous business empire? And most importantly, as aspiring entrepreneurs, what are the lessons that we need to learn from this legendary businessman? This is a story that dates back to late 1940s America, when World War I had just ended. And just like any other post-war situation, the economy was bad, and the Walton family, just like many other people, was struggling to make ends meet in a recovering economy. And since his family was not well off, Walton all throughout his teenage and early 20s had to work at multiple jobs just to pay for school and college. He sold newspapers, worked at retail stores, and even waited tables. And because of the nature of his job, he had to interact with a lot of people from diverse backgrounds. And through those conversations, Sam Walton was able to understand the operations of several businesses operating in the market. In fact, while he was working at a retail store, he used to go the extra mile and study the rest of the competition, although it was never a part of his job. But this ability of his to go the extra mile helped him understand the retail market, and when he gained enough confidence, he saved up some money, borrowed some from his father-in-law, and took up a franchise of a retail chain called Ben Franklin. And this is where his retail journey began. Now, people, just like with any other franchise model, even with Ben Franklin, although he had a liberty to use brand name, they came with a lot of restrictions. He had to buy 80% of the products from Ben Franklin, otherwise he wouldn't get a rebate. He had to spend a certain amount of money in advertising, and he even had to hire a certain amount of people. And all of this gave him only 6 to 7% profits, with a revenue of only $72,000. But right in front of him was his competitor, who was generating a revenue of $150,000 a year. And this ignited a fire in his belly, because of which from the next day onwards he started visiting every single store in town and spent hours at his competitors' stores. In fact, a few store owners even used to get creeped out because Walton was acting as if he was trying to dissect their business and he's trying to steal some business secrets or something. And in this tedious process of examining the competitors and studying the retail market, Sam Walton learned 3 very important things that helped him become the richest man in America. The first thing that he learned was the power of something called discounting, which is a technique of selling products at a lower margin in order to maximize the volume sales. For example, if 100 t-shirts are sold for $3 each with a profit of $1, then the total profit is about $100. But if the same t-shirts are sold at $2.50, although the profit is only 50 cents, the volume of sale used to shoot up to 200 t-shirts. Now, although this might sound like the same $100 profit, it had some incredible benefits that very few people realized. The first benefit was that discounting resulted into more volume in sales, which meant more people bought products at the store and hence resulting into more footfall, which means more visitors. Secondly, the inventory moved in a flash, so if you're the retailer who can quickly sell your current t-shirts, you can get new t-shirt designs in stock, which would again attract more customers. And last and most importantly, you as a retailer could get a better bargaining power with your sellers if your inventory moved faster. For example, if the other players buy about 10,000 units, you could buy 20,000 units because of your accelerated sales volume. And using this bigger purchase order, you could ask the seller to reduce the price by another 10%, which could give you 10% extra profit even with best prices. Now, for a small store, that's only 10% increase in margin along with discount for customers. But when Walmart scaled up using the same principle, they became so powerful that they started dominating the sellers. For example, in the present day, if the wholesaler sells 20,000 units to small retailer for $5 with $2 profit, Walmart will place an order for 2 million units and will ask the seller to sell it at $3.50. And because it's such a huge purchase order, it gives the seller more profit, so they usually agree. Now, when the normal retailer priced their $5 purchase at $7, Walmart puts a price tag of only $4.90. Which means what? The selling price of Walmart is lesser than the cost price of the retailer, making it practically impossible for the retailers to compete with Walmart. And hence Walmart walks away with a healthy profit of $1.40 unit and generates millions of dollars in profit without competition. This is the power of discounting. Initially, Sam Walton could apply discounting to only 20% of the goods because of the franchise restrictions. But later on, when he opened his first Walmart store, this aggressive pricing strategy of discounting was a game changer that accelerated the growth of Walmart and made them millions of dollars in profit. This is the first reason why Samuel Walton became super successful, and that is the power of discounting. Now, the obvious question is, Sam Walton wasn't the only one who knew the power of discounting, right? There were other bigger players in the market. In fact, those people had more capital than Sam Walton. Then why did Sam Walton specifically succeed? And this brings me to the second attribute of this legendary businessman, and that is market research. People, even I couldn't believe it when I read this, but this man was so persistent that he literally visited every single retail store in America that he could find. And he started taking notes about what they were doing well and what they were not. And in this process, he observed that every successful retailer, knowingly or unknowingly, had something that attracted more people to their store. For example, some people had an ice cream candy machine that attracted a lot of kids, so when the parents wanted to shop, they specifically chose to go to the store with an ice cream machine so that they can shop without being annoyed by their kids. While others applied something called the loss leader principle, wherein they sold basic commodities like toothpaste in an ultra-low margin so that they can lure shoppers into making a visit. For example, if the price of toothpaste itself was $1, some stores used to sell it at 50 cents, and that would give them two benefits that very few people actually understood. Number one, by looking at the low cost of the toothpaste, customers by default assumed that the store had the best prices for rest of the products also. And secondly, since they made a visit to the store, they would buy other products like cereals, clothes or DVDs that were all high-margin products. Now, the seller might have lost 50 cents on the paste, but on the rest of the bill he used to make $10 to $20. Therefore, Sam Walton carefully observed every one of these elements and tried to incorporate them in his store. Some ideas worked, some ideas did not, but the one thing was sure, that if at all there was a retail idea that was floating around in the market, it was impossible that Sam Walton did not know about it. In fact, he even got appointments from the head of other discount chains and introduced himself as a small retailer by the street just to get advices from them on how to do business. And you know what, guys, he ended up asking more questions than he was supposed to, and they ended up answering more questions than they were supposed to. And with each passing conversation, Sam Walton walked away with a better understanding of the G market. And you know what, guys? This impeccable market research always kept Walmart at the forefront of the retail revolution, because of which Walmart was always able to find the best sellers, the cheapest products, the best technology, and most importantly, every time they set up a store, they knew exactly what products would work, what products wouldn't work, and what was your competitor's strength and weakness. Now, this begs the question, considering the rapid growth of Walmart, wherein they were opening hundreds of stores every single year, how did Sam Walton manage to keep track of the market? And this brings me to the third point, and that is Sam Walton's team management. Walton followed three very powerful principles that helped him nurture the managers of Walmart into extraordinary leaders. And these three principles were safety, collaboration, and shared ownership. First of all managers of Walmart owned a percentage of their retail store, which gave them a sense of belonging and inspired them to work harder to turn the store into the best one in town. Secondly, he created a culture wherein the entire team would get together every Saturday morning and they would talk about the issues they faced or the problem that needed to be solved in that particular store. And no matter how big or small the problem was, Sam Walton insisted upon solving the problem together as a team without playing the blame game. And last and most importantly, while most retailers had strict rules about what a store manager can do and what a store manager cannot do, Sam Walton gave his store managers the freedom to experiment with different products and different marketing strategies so that they can keep understanding the market better, and even if they failed, they were not at all punished. In fact, they were encouraged to do better after introspection. Because he believed that rigid protocol would stifle innovation, and in order to keep pace with the fast-paced retail industry, it was important that everybody kept experimenting and everybody acquired a deeper understanding of the market. And the result? Well, store managers came out with game-changing ideas like new store designs, better seller suggestions, and one of their managers named Phil Green was so passionate and inspired to experiment that he once bought the largest display of Tide ever and bought 3,500 giant boxes of Tide just to compete with another giant called Kmart. And the stock that he brought was so large in quantity that it occupied an entire section even after being stacked up all the way up to the roof. Now, most people would get fired for making such a big and risky purchase decision, but at Walmart he did not have to fear. Guess what? Phil sold out all of those boxes within a week, and suddenly Walmart became the new favorite in town as compared to Kmart. This was the revolutionary culture that Sam Walton cultivated in Walmart that turned his managers from just managers into ambassadors of the business and risk-taking owners, eventually turning Walmart into one of the most powerful companies in America with 2.2 million employees and a revenue of $5